Welcome everyone to our afternoon sessions on reporting. My name is Sandy Dixon. I'm the lead crime victim services planner here at the Governor's Crime Commission. And we have a lot of information to cover in 30 minutes. So I am going to be turning the presentation over to Lindsay Bohan, Jordan Meyer, and Grace Clougherty to talk about the Victims of Crime Act subrecipient performance reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. We're going to go ahead, like Sandy said, and get started. We know, I'm sure that everybody's just kind of settling in regards to having maybe eaten something. So I know this isn't exactly the most exciting information, but hopefully we can give you all some assistance on these reports. My name is Lindsay Bohan. I am the lead VOCA planner for the Governor's Crime Commission. For some reason at the moment, it is not letting me share my video, or else I would at the very least turn it on. But I'll be presenting this information along with Jordan Meyer, who is one of our newer VOCA planners. She's been with us for a year now, but this is her first workshop with us. And then Grace Clougherty, who is our Crime Victim Services Program assistant. I'm sure, especially in regards to VOCA and VAWA, but for a lot of different things, you've seen her name and face on a lot of different communications and such, but particularly, of course, around this subject in regards to the subrecipient performance reporting for the Victims of Crime Act. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see. And this we're supposed to do. Okay. So first kind of off, we just wanted to do a brief overview of kind of why the federal government, why the Office of Victims of Crime requires that VOCA grantees complete these performance measurement data tools and reports. So first off, it is definitely to get an idea both nationally and statewide the actual performance of the awards themselves, right? And what goals and strategic items for both the VOCA grant nationally and then of course for the statewide are being completed and how that looks across the states in regards to VOCA awards, demonstrating the output of grant funds, emphasizing progress made towards strategic and program goals, and then also to provide like transparency and to reach target audience of grantees, sub-grantees, and the general public with the data for how this money is being spent. There's a screenshot here, and it's an older report, but this is a report based on North Carolina's VOCA PMT data that was completed for the North Carolina, for our funding, for VOCA funding, by the OVC PMT Help Desk. So they completed this for federal fiscal years 2018 through 2021, and using the data that you input through these reports and through these SARs, they were able to complete and pull data in regards to how much is being allocated in subawards across the state, how many organizations were being funded, and then how many total awards were being funded across in this regard across the counties within North Carolina. And then this report specifically notes rural and urban differentiation, and then of course what counties did not have VOCA funded awards or organizations at the time of this data being pulled. So they're able to complete these statewide reports and these national reports, and then also give us a good idea of kind of how we're meeting goals and how we are doing within the state for us to do better planning. So a lot of this information, while it is tedious and while it is difficult to complete at times and to get a hang of, it is definitely going towards the work that we know that you're doing, and to ensuring that we can advocate and making sure that we have the information necessary to get the funding as best as we can awarded out. So when approaching these reports that we're going to go over, when we're approaching these reports, it's important to kind of consider a host of different things. So when looking at resources to use, we're definitely looking at, utilizing the performance measures PDF, which we will have links to and be able to provide the resources for. the VOCA terminology resource to be able to understand what these questions are asking, and then your own agency or program goals and objectives, as well as past quarterly reports for comparison. A lot of folks on here, of course, are probably not new to VOCA funding. Those of you that are won't necessarily have these past quarterly reports to rely on, but they are a good way. They are a good way to just kind of look at the current reports that you're going to be completing and ensuring kind of how to be streamlined and how to be consistent, and also kind of to understand how your agency specifically has been answering these questions. And then some suggested questions to review data is definitely going to be like looking at what is reasonable. Does the data make sense in relation to the objectives or the categories of service that are outlined within your grant award? And then what might signify a cause for concern? Have you been awarded for something that maybe is not showing up in your data? And why would that be? And kind of what plan needs to be in place to do that? What is the project timeline status? So how long do you have to complete these goals? And kind of what that looks like as far as where you're at currently when you complete this information. And then how does an explanation line up with what was reported or the VOCA Act specifically? So just some questions to kind of consider and review as you're looking at your own data and as we are also looking at data as well. The three kind of main pieces of this reporting system and this reporting process are very heavily reflected here in regards to the initial subgrant award report or the SAR Part 1, the subgrant award report, which is the SAR Part 2, and the performance reports, or what is referred to as PMTs. The performance measurement tool is what we use to kind of generally refer to the quarterly PMT reports. And so each of these has a little bit of changes moving forward in regards to how we're able to complete this process, specifically for the EBS changes that we've had in place. So we've done some process switches that we're going to go over more thoroughly later in the presentation. But just as an overview of, the due dates are going to change a little bit, but the ISAR, so in the SAR Part 2, will actually be being submitted prior to your VOCA grant opening, where historically we have had that kind of either in conjunction with the grant opening or shortly after the grant opening. And then, of course, your performance reports, your quarterly PMT reports are due throughout the life of your grant, and they're due quarterly, and we're going to go over those specific due dates that are consistent as well. And again, the three pieces of this, they have to be kind of completed in order to be able to get to the next steps and to be able to ensure that you're able to access what you need to be in compliance. So one, doing the initial subgrant award report first, and working alongside the grant planners to do that. The subgrant award report, the Part 2 section, is specifically going to be completed by the subrecipients. And then the OVC quarterly performance reports are also completed by you, the agency, to be able to get that data in quarterly. Again, each report is required, not just by GCC. Each report is required as a special condition of your VOCA award, and it is outlined in the federal guidelines and federal mandates that they have to be submitted by their respective deadline to be able to be in compliance with VOCA awards. And then the subrecipients will not be able to receive reimbursements for project-related expenses if reports are not submitted by deadlines. So we have utilized in the previous system, we had an automatic hold system placed in GEMS and that we utilize for this. In EBS, we don't quite have the same system, but of course, because reimbursements go through approvals, we would not be approving any reimbursements if there was reports that were late or were past deadlines that had been communicated. The primary tool or the primary platform that is utilized to be able to submit these reports is the federal reporting website under the Office of Justice Programs, or like what we typically refer to as, again, the PMT website or the performance measurement platform. So we kind of go between those two typically. So this is the system that you have to kind of make sure that the appropriate people for each grant have access to make sure that you're able to complete these reports in a timely fashion, as well as we'll go into as the EBS portion of the process as well. Some of you might already have access to this platform because of previous grants and needing to complete previous reports. And so those who do currently have access actually have the ability to add new users. And then those that don't have access would then need to refer to and discuss, would need to contact their grant planners and or grant administrator to be able to get access to this website. And just as something that we noted with some of the EBS pieces and parts, as far as like what's the easiest way to access. So system-wise, the OVC PMT system works best with Google Chrome. And then they also note that JavaScript must also be enabled on the computer to enter the OVC PMT data. So there's tools and tricks on the front of the website itself to be able to assist in that process to make sure that you have the correct kind of electronic pieces ready and available to get access to this website. And as I just mentioned, so agency users who have access can add additional OVC website users for their agency. We, as in GCC staff, we cannot add new users to an agency. The only thing that we are able to do is we are able to update point of contact for each individual grant, which is one person within the system. We do not have the ability to add users to your agency. Somebody who currently has access in your system, in your agency, would be able to do that under the administration piece, and they would be able to add a new user, and then that would send a link to the new user to complete their registration. So on the EBS side of things, these, of course, this is what you should see if you have access to EBS, and then also if you have access to the GCC tiles in EBS. So as somebody noted, I think in the chat earlier, if you have Council for Women access, or if you have grants and EBS access from another system or from another agency, then that's great. But you do, if you haven't already, you do have to complete an additional request for specifically GCC access. So that is outlined in our processes to be able to see these specific tiles that do state GCC. And then something to really kind of nail down is that EBS and the OVC PMT system, so the federal website that I showed you, and then EBS itself, they are not connected in any way. So subrecipients must ensure that each individual necessary to access agreements and or reporting have access to the appropriate systems. Subrecipients must submit required reports in both platforms as instructed. And then if you are unsure of where you are in each process, or if you are unsure of who has access where, then by all means, please reach out to your grant planner or your grant administrator. But I think it's hard to remember sometimes because there's so many moving pieces and parts that, oh, hey, I submitted a change request in EBS to update my project officials. But that kind of, the assumption is understandably like, that's it. That's all I have to do because I did that. And then not understanding that, hey, this system is not attached to EBS whatsoever. The federal system is not attached. So you would also either have to add a new user in that system or notify your grant planner or grant administrator so we can update points of contacts and so forth. And there are, as we have will continue to restate, there are multiple user guides. And as somebody who has completed the PMT reports as a subrecipient myself previously before coming into this position, it is like the user guides, especially the OVC performance measurement platform user guide, is invaluable in regards to moving through the actual substance of the reports themselves. So those are going to be really, really great resources to just get any questions or concerns potentially answered So definitely want to make sure that that those are relied on. And then next up, we're going to go over the initial subgrant award report, which I believe will be completed. This part of the presentation will be covered by Jordan Mayer. And Jordan, if you are unmuted, I can hear you, but not unmuted. Sorry, just one moment. I think I'm having a sound issue.
Anyone hear me? Oh, Don said yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. So my name is Jordan. I am the other VOCA grant planner alongside Lindsay, and I'm going to go over the initial subgrant award report as well as the subgrant award report part 2. So as Lindsay said, these are the first 2 components of the PMT process. So prior to completing your quarterly reports, you will need to complete the subgrant award reports. And Lindsay, if you can go to the next slide. So this is like I said, the first reporting step in gaining access to the quarterly reports for the PMT system. It's essentially a profile for this website. We will provide to you part 1 in spreadsheet form via email. We, as in our grant planners, people who have been with us previously might be more familiar with your grant administrator, grant manager, sending these to you with your welcome letter. We're switching that a little bit this year, so you will be receiving it by either myself or Lindsay or Amanda. And part 1 is a lot of mostly self-explanatory questions. So it's going to ask for your agency name, your point of contact, organization type, things of that sort. And this is going to be due to GCC at the implementation of the grant. So prior to the grant opening, this will be due. And I believe the next slide, Lindsay. Okay, great. So as I said, this provides basic information on your organization and the project itself. And this is required for federal tracking and alignment with priorities / purpose of funding. Updates to your SAR are required for no cost extensions, additional funding years and amounts, and then in other circumstances as well. Part 1, one of the main questions it asks is about the priority for your project. And any of the scenarios that do not apply to your project or your agency, you will just enter 0. And you can go to the next one. As Lindsay said earlier, the systems are not combined or not conjoined, so they don't communicate to each other, meaning that whatever you submit in the PMT system, you will also need to do so in EBS. And this is just for agency purposes, so everyone on our team has access to your reporting. And then the OVC PMT system is obviously a federal requirement. And this is different from what you might have experienced with GEMS, where it did communicate to each other. Okay, so during the modifications process, you will be completing part 1 of the SAR, and you will be receiving this, like I said earlier, through a spreadsheet sent by myself, Lindsay, or Amanda. Once you complete that spreadsheet, you will upload it to the progress performance report tile, and then you will notify your grant planner, who will then review it and input that information into the OVC PMT system. So one of the main questions that you will be asked on the part one is your priority and underserved requirements. The priority that is listed on your application and on your EBS profile must match what you select in the OVC PMT system. So for example, if your project as listed here is a DVSA basic, then you will also be selecting domestic violence and sexual assault in the OVC PMT system. And this is a more detailed illustration of the priority selections. One that a lot of people get confused on is the underserved category. And that's because a lot of times the crime or victimization type that you are serving may also align with the victimization type under CCCs or DVSA. So if your priority that you have applied under is underserved, even if you serve domestic violence victims, that will still go under the underserved priority. And then there are the competitive priorities as well, and you will split between the program priorities aligning with your funding award as needed. This is an example of what the Part 1 looks like on OVC PMT system. You can see here in this example, this is an underserved project. So they have put all of their funding amount in the underserved category. And then underneath that category, you can see where it separates out into the individual crime or victimization types. So for this one, they selected other underserved and they put the rest of the funding in that as well. And then once you've completed SAR Part 1, there is a Part 2 that the subrecipients will actually be completing on the OVC PMT website. You can go to the next slide. Great. So Part 2 begins at question 7, and they're a little bit more specific questions, but still pretty self-explanatory. So it will ask about your service areas. It's going to ask about how you plan on using the VOCA funding. So whether it's for information and referral or emotional support or safety services, shelter, things like that, you will just be selecting which ones that you participate in as an agency. And then they will also be asking for the types of victimizations that you serve. So this is where you can go into more detail on the victimization type. So if you do serve domestic violence or sexual assault victims, this is where you select that. And once Part 2 is completed and saved in the PMT system, then your point of contact will have access to the quarterly reports for each of your organization's VOCA-funded projects. And Grace is going to go over in more detail on the quarterly reporting systems.
Thanks, Jordan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So as Jordan said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the actual PMT reports themselves. Lindsay, if you could go to the next slide. So on the left, you can see there's a graphic of the reporting calendar. This includes the reporting window and the due date for each quarter. It's also important to note that the staff at GCC can't address any technical issues with the website. So if you're experiencing any problems with the website, we've listed the information for the OVC PMT help desk, and also that any of the information entered into the system goes directly to OVC. And it's also, sorry, Lindsay, can you go back one? I just wanted to also point out that for the graphic, the questions on the PMT report themselves are only referring to the data from services provided within that reporting window. So GCC staff will create a profile in the PMT system once your award's been approved. When that profile is made, the point of contact will receive an email with info on how to log in, and they also might want to save that for future use. It might not seem relevant at the moment, but it will be used later. And then whoever's listed as the project director in EBS is going to be the one who's listed as the point of contact in the PMT system. when the profiles are made, and it will be the one who receives all the communication from GCC about the reports and the emails about when they're due. So if you have someone else that's going to be completing the report, then GCC will have to be notified so that we can change that point of contact in OVC. So this is just a screenshot of what it's going to look like when you actually enter the data into the OVC PMT system. You can see that there will be different sections that you're going to have to click on, and staff can also see like the status of the report as you're working on it. So if you need to ask us if it's been submitted correctly, we're going to be able to go in and see that. If you're having trouble working on it, we can also try to help you because we can see if it's in progress or not started. It also needs to be submitted in OVC before it's put into EBS. This is just a small review of the different sections of the report themselves. You can see there's 3 different sections: population demographics, direct services, and review. Within population demographics, you'll see questions about demographics, victimization types, and special classifications. There's also 2 terms that are important to note: not reported and not tracked, that you're going to see during the report. And it's also important to know the differences between these. So not reported just means that the subgrantee collects the data, but the data wasn't provided by the victim. And then the not tracked means that this subrecipient is unable to collect the data or unable to collect the data in the format requested by OVC. If this happens, then the state or subgrantee should have the efforts underway to be able to collect the data as requested. And then the screenshot below also shows a box that's at the end of the reporting process during the review section. And you need to be able to click that to make sure that the data is marked as complete. If you don't click that, then this data will stay in progress even if you save the report, and it won't show up on our side as completed. So when you submit the data in OVC, you have the option to generate it as a PDF. That PDF will then be what you're going to submit into EBS in the tile shown on this slide. And then once that data is submitted in EBS, the grant administrator will receive a notification so that they can review and validate the report. In the case of any errors in the report, the grant administrator finds, a grant planner will unlock the report in OVC. You'll be notified by your grant administrator to go in and correct the report. And then once it's corrected in PMT, you'll be able to resubmit it in the EBS system. OVC themselves also sends us PMT errors, so those will be sent to GCC about 2 months after each quarterly deadline. The planners will unlock the reports that need to be corrected, and then we'll contact your grant administrator, who will coordinate with you on how to fix the report and resubmit it. We've also listed below the most commonly missed questions, but we'll re-highlight those in emails. No, that's fine, Lindsay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry about that, Grace.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So this is just on subrecipient compliance and monitoring. The ISAR and quarterly reports are federally mandated, as Lindsay stated, and they must be completed to continue receiving the money. GCC compliance and monitoring includes tracking agencies with consistently late reports and unreported barriers. GCC can also increase monitoring, delay, reduce, or revoke awards because of continuing reporting issues, which might include multiple late reports, lack of communication, or lack of internal controls. So how can we help you? It's always smart to start early, just in case you have any issues with opening the reports or completing them. PMT, the website itself, also provides other resources in the Need Help tab. GCC is going to send reminder emails each quarter when they're open, and we'll also send additional reminder emails and late emails as it is necessary. We also are going to have quarterly TA sessions that a link's going to be sent in October, but it will be resent with each email that comes out each quarter. OVC also provides other resources like the ones listed below that will be included in the reminder emails. There's also pre-recorded trainings, and if you're experiencing staff turnover, you can ask about a welcome to OVC performance management session. Here's just another contact slide for the OVC PMT help desk. And then here is the contact information for the VOCA staff. It'll see mostly emails from me, Grace, or Jordan concerning PMTs, but everyone on the slide is able to help you.
And then that is the end of our session in regards to VOCA reporting. I just do want to reiterate, and I hope that folks who have had experience with PMT reports with us have felt this, but just to reiterate that, like, while we are responsible for compliance and monitoring of this special condition of these reports, our priority is ensuring that you're successful and that you feel like you have the resources that you need to complete these reports, and that they're not some huge mystery. And while they are tedious due to how the reports are set up, we don't want them to be so utterly cumbersome and difficult that you aren't able to complete it and make sure that you are stay within your compliance and stay within your monitoring, and then also can use the data yourself when you need it to be able to advocate for the work that you do. So we just want to make sure that you always know that you're able to reach out to us at any time to be able to walk through any questions individually or with your agency, or to retrain people, to train new folks that you have, and then to talk about kind of how to pull this data and how to utilize your current documentation processes to be able to get what you need to complete these reports. So Jordan and Grace are wonderful, and they would be able to assist you as much as possible. And so we just wanted to reiterate that, yeah, while we also kind of have to be the ones to send the late emails and say, hey, we have to hold your reimbursements and stuff like that, if there is issues, we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So just wanted to make sure that we advise that specifically as well. So that is all.
Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. We have about